oh, by the way, you know, we have a lot of great solutions out there. And, you know, the federal government wants to put wind on us, wants to, you know, solar. Yeah, it's done us a lot of good this last few days here, when you look at the amount of cloud cover we've had. But the federal government tends to take the one-size-fits-all. They try to cut out, you know, things that are good for the local areas, because it doesn't make the people in Massachusetts or California very happy. But if we turn it back to the states and let each of the states control, you know, hey, Iowa, wind, knock yourself out. You know, North Dakota and the upper states there that have that shale coal and or shale oil, knock yourselves out, go for it. Anwar, yep, let's drill. But if we just use the resources we have available to us, it's projected that oil could be set as low as $17 a barrel. And think about the amount of money, $7 trillion every year that we send over to the Middle East to those who hate us. If that money were reinvested right here in our own country, we talk about developing those industries. If we were to only use our energy, it would also lead to a rebirth in our steel industry. And you talk about vehicles and the manufacturing and those essential jobs, rebuilding our nation's wealth and creating the opportunities so that when our kids grow up, they don't feel like they have to move somewhere else to build their own careers. Perhaps the most telling statement from Jack was in 2008, last few days of the campaign. And he said there was no GD way he was going to lose his seat to a carpetbagger. By the way, you know he brought Bill Clinton in twice to call me a carpetbagger? But he said there was no GD way he was going to lose his seat. It's not his seat, it's your seat.
Amen.
And
pay his damn salary.
But it's your seat, and you deserve a congressman who's, if nothing else, is going to listen to you. And certainly that's what I'm here to do. All that said, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for inviting me. John, thank you so much. And I'm open to questions. Yes, sir.
Would you be willing, or maybe better yet, enthusiastic about introducing legislation? In fact, I would even prefer if it would be an amendment to the Constitution, but that's probably a bit ambitious. But at least introducing legislation that said for every new law that's passed, 2 existing laws must be abolished. Not may, but must. And the reason I say this, it's something, I'm not speaking for the group, but just personal. There's been so many egregious and onerous laws passed over the years that shouldn't even have been passed to begin with. There have been other laws that have been passed for specific purposes, like many of the depression laws. Still on the books, we're still paying for. It should have been gone long ago.
Yeah.
And probably,
Johnson flood tax, unfortunately that's a state tax.
but equally important, maybe even more important, I feel that if something like this could be passed, since it's tough to get people to agree on most anything in Congress, that if that legislation were passed to get a whole Congress to agree on which 2 laws should be abolished would be next to impossible, which would in turn make it very difficult to pass a new law, which to me I think is a good thing. And would also ensure that any new laws that do get passed would probably be really critically important, or would never get to that point. You know, Congress would probably even agree on what to abolish if they thought the new law was that important. So my question is, would you be willing to introduce and aggressively push for something like that?
It's a great idea. The little bit I've learned, I think it would actually be very, very difficult to implement that to be able to be effective. I think it makes perfect sense in so many ways. But the problem you run into is they'll say, okay, well, we'll do this law. They'll pick they'll pass, the 2,000-page health care bill, and then remove, an 1870 horse trading law that's a 2-liner, and that's the kind of thing you'd run into. And they just start picking up little ones that are irrelevant, And it would, I think that would actually end up as bad as we dare say, complicating the system. I think it's a great idea though, but when we step back and look at reality, negotiation of even getting that law to get passed, because that would almost, like I say, that would require an amendment to the Constitution. I think that'd be very, very difficult. That said, let me step back and answer philosophically in terms of my approach to how we look at laws. When they bring in a new legislation, one of the things that happens is that, you know, just like this healthcare bill, it binds all of you to a contract to pay certain taxes, to fulfill certain obligations, whether or not you agree with them, whether or not they're good for you. And that occurs all across the board. So where do we start out when we get new laws? Initial answer is no. You gotta look at that law, determine one, is it moral, is it right? Two, is it constitutional? Three, what are the second and third order effects? Okay, if we pass this law to, you know, take something from Peter to give it to Paul, what are the long-term effects on Paul's family? What are the long-term effects on Peter's family? What happens to their kids? You know, you've got to look at things from that perspective. Does it make sense when you look at it? What are the second and third order effects of that law? And then, finally, meets all those, and then you can get to the you know, does the basic just common sense thing. Does it do something good? Does it create a good that does not currently exist? Does it create a protection that does not currently exist? That does not interfere with other things? You have to get through that level of analysis before we get to yes on the new legislation. And so that would be my approach, because when we look at, you know, all this stuff they're bringing down the lane, you know, whether it's earmarks or this 2,000-page healthcare bill, with all the controls and all the stuff in it that go far beyond the healthcare, you know, it just doesn't make sense. So that would be my approach. I like your idea, but like I said, unfortunately, I just don't, at this point in time, I don't see how to be practical, but if I get there and say, hey, this could work, I definitely push it, but I hope that answers